Let me start off by saying this. When Jean Court and I wrote the book, we sat down one whole day and didn't do a thing but talk. And I said to her, Jean, are we going to cover anything up? Are we going to keep things from people? Or are we going to tell the truth? She said, you know, we're both good Catholics. We better tell the truth. So we did. So Stafford had a very colorful beginning. We had gambling. We had bootlegging. And I could tell you some stories about that. You know, one thing about it, when Jean and I started, we still had probably about 21 people that were old enough to know the stories. Part of the gambling was in the old historic buildings on North Main. If you go on down and you see those brick buildings, some of those, one brick building in particular, you would go, as soon as you open the door, you start going upstairs. And so they would go upstairs and they would have the gambling, and then, you know, stores or whatever, you know, at the bottom part. As people in the newspaper business call it, the feds came to Stafford. The feds, yeah, Federal Reserve. So they came into that one house and they busted that front door open and they said, do you have alcohol in here? Are you a bootlegger? And the guy said, no, I'm not a bootlegger. And he was laying in bed, acting like he was sick, and he had bottles of alcohol beside him. They didn't even rip the sheets from him, but they started shooting those bottles. And there he was in the middle of it. You know, and I'm sure he was embarrassed, but yet that was a way of life back then. But yeah, the feds went into the fields, into the cotton fields, into the corn fields. And some of those farmers had put their alcohol in the fields. In fact, one guy said he forgot where he put them. So, you know, it was very interesting, but we've always kept Stafford for what it was. You know, the whole town was colorful. I wouldn't say they were exactly proud of what they were doing, but they did have their bootlegging, they did have their gambling, and we didn't want to deny it. You know, we didn't want to write the book and have all these cover-ups, so we did it the best way we thought was possible. Stafford people had wiring where they could communicate with those gamblers in Galveston. We often asked for some of that wiring because we would have kept it in a museum if we ever form a museum, and I think it would have been interesting.